Welcome back to part 2 of my conversation with Andrew Campanella. We spoke about the National School Choice Week and the educational opportunities available for families to choose from. And now we're going to talk about how to select the right educational environment for your child. So Andrew, choosing the right school for your child is, as I mentioned before, a really daunting task that can shape the entirety of your child's educational career. How do you go about doing that? What questions should parents ask educators when they're looking for a new school?
Well, it's such a good question, and I think the most important thing to remember as you're looking at different schools is this is a very personal and individual decision. There are no specific questions that everyone has to ask, but the one question I encourage you to ask yourself is, in what environment will my child be challenged, motivated, and inspired to succeed? Kids are different. They have different interests. One student might enjoy math. Another student might enjoy English. Another student might really find joy in social studies. So subjects are different. Extracurricular activity interests are different. The important thing is to match your child up with a school that will inspire she or he to succeed and prepare them not just for school, but for life.
And in making that decision, I think it's probably a little easier when your child is younger, but becomes more difficult, of course, as they get older.
You know, I see people choosing schools for high schoolers, and you will see a huge shift when you take a child who's not succeeding in one high school and move them to another. It is a life-changing experience. So you would be surprised possibly at how many people make these changes in the high school years. Usually it's between freshman and sophomore year when a decision like that is made.
So don't worry about it and know that you probably might have to make a change.
Exactly. And don't say, you know what, they're in this school, they've done 9th grade, we've got to stick through it for the next 3 years. If you are in this situation, even if you're in 11th grade, your child's in 11th grade and it is not working out and you don't think your child's happy, you don't think they've acquired enough knowledge, make a switch for the 12th grade.
Well, what sorts of questions should you ask the educators at the school that you're interested in?
The top question that I would ask is, what do you expect from my child? What are the expectations that this school has for my child? What type of coursework is offered? What type of homework is offered? Some families like a lot of homework. A lot of families want minimal amounts of homework. What extracurricular activities are there? What are class sizes like? How are teachers selected? What does your teacher retention look like? How long has your longest serving teacher been there? There are so many questions you could ask, but instead of necessarily writing all those down, what I encourage families to do is write your own list of questions down. Write your own list down so that you can get those questions answered. And there really are no wrong questions to ask because you want to feel as comfortable as possible in making this decision.
As a parent, I know that there are a lot of schools that expect a great deal of parental involvement. Would you think that that would also be another area that you should explore?
Absolutely. And that's a question that I would not just ask the school leaders and the administrators, but I would ask other parents too. Because a lot of school leaders might say, yes, we want parent involvement, we value parent input, but other parents will be able to tell you if that's really true for the schools you're looking at. So the idea of choosing schools, when you're actually in the process of making a choice, that is the first step towards greater parental involvement. And schools where parents are actively choosing definitely see greater parent involvement. And I think that's a good thing. So we talk about the importance of parent involvement in education. The best way to do that is to give parents as many choices as possible so they're involved from the first step of this process.
How important is input from other parents whose children have attended?
I think it's very important as long as you structure your questions to those parents with the understanding that everyone will have different experiences with a school. So you might want to look for some trends. If all the parents you talk to say one thing about a school, or if they're all trending towards that one thing, it might be true. But if one parent had a bad experience, that's not necessarily a reason that the school wouldn't work for your child.
Well, that's good to keep in mind because it's always going to be colored by their own perceptions and experiences.
Just
Absolutely.
like reviews online, Yelp and Amazon, you look at these reviews and everybody could give something 5 stars and you get one person who gives a 1-star review. You don't want to just go by the 1-star review.
What about school culture?
I think it's important to find a school that matches what you want in your family. For example, do you want a school that has very high expectations for students? I think that's important. Do you want a school where there is a value of respect, where bullying is not tolerated, where students and teachers get along and collaborate, where there is opportunities for students to meet students from different cultures? I think those things are important. And again, it's really up to what an individual family values, though. So I don't want to prejudice the matter by saying, hey, this is what I'd be looking for, because every family's criteria will be different.
And speaking of that criteria, Andrew, if you decide to either homeschool or school online with periodic classes or gatherings of students, what sorts of things are you looking for in those instances?
Well, you want to make sure that your child is a student who can learn well using technology. And that's important because it works for a lot of kids. It doesn't work for some others. So you want to try it out first and see if it works. Maybe take an online course over the summer. See if that's working out. See if you have enough time to devote to the process as well if you're doing a full-time online school. Now, if you're homeschooling, there are more resources and curriculum and online supports than ever before for homeschooling families. So a parent who really feels confident about teaching most subjects, but for example, might not know physics, can tap into a great online course to help augment their home education. And so that is leading to an increase in homeschooling, which is growing it by about 3% more every year.
Well, I'd be that person who wouldn't be good in physics, so I definitely have to give that class to someone else to teach.
Me too.
Well, there could also be an impact on your child and to the family if you make the wrong choice.
There is. And, this is always the sad part of it. If you are in an environment, if your child's in an environment where they're not successful, they are not happy, they are not learning. What ends up happening in many cases is students don't feel inspired to actually succeed or to complete high school. They drop out. So we want to prevent students from dropping out because there are so many consequences to not actually getting a high school diploma that impact the rest of your life.
And Andrew, how much should you rely on what your student wants versus what you want for them? Because sometimes parents and students at that point come to loggerheads.
They do, and at the end of the day, you are the parent. And you want them to be in an environment that matches your hopes and dreams for them and your values. However, you also want to have a student who can eventually be happy in the environment that you chose for them, or learn in the environment that you chose for them, or hopefully be both happy and learning. So work with your child on this matter. Talk to them about it. Understand that there are apprehensions that kids have about making friends and about feeling comfortable at school. And those things are valuable considerations, so don't discount them.
And the goal, of course, is to get your kids in school and for them to graduate from high school and hopefully go on to college and or the next phase of their life successfully. So what are some of the consequences for a student, for families and communities when kids drop out of high school?
Yeah, we see that when students drop out, well, first I should say that not everybody who drops out of high school is going to have a difficult life. There are people who do not succeed in high school who go on to lead successful lives. But statistics show that when a student does graduate, they will earn every year of their working life $8,000 more than someone who did not graduate from high school. They're more likely to vote. They're more likely to volunteer and be involved in their communities. And so that is why it is vitally important to get kids across the finish line that is high school graduation.
And what do you think, Andrew, can be done to get more students to graduate from high school?
Well, that's the good news, and that's why this all dovetails with National School Choice Week, because we know that when parents actively choose a school for their kids, regardless of what type of school they choose, public, private, magnet, charter, online, home, education, students are more likely to succeed, to graduate, and to be prepared for life. So that's why we want people to use School Choice Week as a chance to evaluate all the options available.
Well, I've certainly enjoyed our conversation. Thank you much for joining me. Where can we go for some more information?
Well, same here. Thanks for having me. And people can go to schoolchoiceweek.com.
Andrew Campanella has been my guest. He's the president of National School Choice Week. Check out that website and get going. Now's the time to take a look at new school options.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And that's it for this week's show. I'm Audrey Adams. Thank you so much for watching. Join us right here next week for more insightful, intelligent, and inspiring conversations and information on Talk with Audrey. I'll see you next week.